All right. Hi, everybody. Check my audio levels real quick. Make sure we're all good there. I think we're all right. Okay. Call that good. Don't want to overwhelm everybody with the music. How is everybody this evening? Everybody good? Everybody great? Everybody fantastic? What's up, Rushdiv? How are you this evening? How were classes today? No, you said you had some of that going on at the moment. Okay. So I figured I'd show you guys before I did any basing and stuff. I stripped all of my Plague Marines for the Putrid Maw, which is my Nurgle World Eaters. They serve Khorne and Nurgle, and they're just kind of split because some of them got infected with the rot, and then some didn't, and they're more Khorne adjacent. Decent, tired for sure, but it's college, not backbreaking labor. Boy, I wish I could understand that again. Um, so pretty much all I did was I stripped them all because I just wanted to redo them because I know I'm a much better painter now than I was when I painted them the first time. So I stripped them all, took off all their heads, and I replaced them with World Eater helmets. And I think they look pretty sick. Something about the chunky World Eater helmets. It just fits. I don't know. I'm happy with it, especially this dude here. He's especially menacing in my opinion. But I'm gonna rebase them all. I say rebase. I'm gonna do a little bit of a different basing thing. I'm just gonna have them all trudging through blood. I feel like that's pretty par for the course. And then I'm going to have the bone spores, which are these cool little, I think they're sea sponge, but I use them for flare. They look like fungus, and I just glue them on. But I'm gonna put those on the bases and on them too, growing out of their bones. But that is not what we're doing tonight. I just want to show them off. I'm gonna go put them back on the shelf, and we'll continue with what we are doing tonight. So I'm going to do a couple things. I have this Raptor that I need to finish. I've got all his base coats except for the trim. Got to do the trim, and I've got to do all the metallics. And then he will be pretty much done. Then I'll have to just paint his base. But before I start on that, been meaning to do this forever, but I'm going to put a black base coat on this Gravis Captain, who's going to be the captain for the Reliquary Brotherhood, which is, to no one's surprise, another homebrew of mine. And I think I've finally narrowed in who I want them to be a successor of. And I think I've decided on Dark Angels. Because recently, Dark Angels may have started to become my favorite Legion. Just because the Knight aesthetic goes really, really, really hard. And I don't know why I didn't think that earlier. Now, they're not my favorite chapter. My favorite chapter is still the Lamenters. But my favorite Legion is probably becoming the Dark Angels. So we're just going to put a black base coat so he'll be ready whenever I can get to him. Might have to do a couple coats. This might actually be too thin. Thicken it up a little bit. I don't want it to be too thick, because then it's gonna stretch between the gaps. It's not gonna look right. So yeah, I think these guys are gonna be a Dark Angel successor. I'm gonna be happy with that. Because first I was like, well, they could be White Scars. I was like, they could be Imperial Fists. But I think I've finally narrowed it down. Which means if I want them to be a true Dark Angel successor, I'm going to have to get a bunch of Dark Angel models. So I can have the winged helms. I'm kind of a fan of those. I might be in the minority, but I love the winged helm aesthetic. Is anybody else working on anything this evening? Or you're just here to listen to me ramble? Which I can do, no questions asked. I will ramble forever if you let me. There's some spots that the primer didn't get to. And I'm just going to have to be okay with that. You can really tell because this was one of the blue plastic models instead of the gray. It kind of shows. Because I use gray primer for pretty much everything, and then I go in with a black base coat. Fortunately not. want to work on stuff between homework, not having proper painting mat, just not prepped for working on stuff yet. I get that. A rain cloud. The storm approaches. You know, if I were to really press you into getting into a Space Marine chapter, I should get you into the Storm Wardens. Not because they're super cool, but thematically they would fit with your name. I mean, they are kind of cool. They live on, like... Well, maybe I'm confusing them with the Emperor's Spears. I was going to say they live on, like, a Camino planet, but I think that's more like the Emperor's Spears. I would have to brush up on my Storm Warden's research. I believe it's speculated that they're an Ultramarine successor. Rain Cloud leading the Wardens of the Storm. See, you're already halfway there. I'll just have to do some brief research, because I watched a lore video on them recently, because the Remembrancer came out with something. And I was like, hey, they sound cool. And I don't remember any of it now. But in my defense, I absorb 40k content every single day. So a little bit of it gets jumbled up in the brain. You can definitely tell the spots where the primer didn't hit because the paint's not sticking like it's supposed to. Let's go in and double check, make sure this guy is properly base coded like he's supposed to. Also try to absorb 40k every day, whether I read, listen, or watch, maybe sometimes hobby. That's the way I am right now. The way my work schedule's been, I haven't had any time for hobby. And reading is hit or miss. It depends on how exhausted I am before bed, because that's about the only time that I ever get to read anything. And here recently, it's been next to nothing. I would have the Night Lord trilogy finished if I wasn't absolutely obliterated at the end of the day. But I have been getting back into it recently, and I'm just like, dang, this is so good. Why did I stop? And then I come back later and I'm like, oh yeah, I was tired. You know what today is? Should I know what today is? It's Tuesday. Also, didn't get an answer from last week. When is this last stream going to be? Put it out to work in the fields. Unofficially, I'm gonna go as long as I can. But I figure mid-September is probably going to be the cutoff. And then I'm going to try to stream on Sundays rather than Tuesdays, because Sunday will be the only free day I have. And that will probably go until early November. So we'll see. I need to stockpile some projects so I can get them out while I'm gone. I usually figure about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on weather and all that. Reinforcements from... Oh. I don't pay attention to all that. Still gonna try to stream during harvest. Yeah, it's gonna be a valiant attempt. And then maybe I can get some shorts out from the streams themselves. Or if I get a model done. That's really what's been holding me up on getting content out, is I usually try to get a full unit done before I make a short. But I think I'm just gonna have to start doing works in progress. That way I can get things out more frequently, which will solidify my place in the algorithm. But I'm already starting to wane in the algorithm because I haven't had time to actually paint anything. Because I've been working 10-hour days, most days for the last month. I was playing it earlier, spent $11 just to the Halo Warbond. About to do the same. I ended up deleting it from my hard drive because it was taking up space and I didn't have to. I don't have time to play it. Once winter hits, you'll have plenty of time. I hope so. That's the way it was last winter. That's kind of when the idea of doing this, the streaming part, came about. Was in the winter. I was like, you know, I do this. I like doing this. Why not do it in front of a camera? And with streaming, you don't have to edit anything. So that makes it even better. Just did 2 10 to 12 hour days. Yeah, it wasn't exciting. I usually get to work about 7:30 and okay. I think I got all the nooks and crannies. There's a few up in the very back that I don't think I can get. But they're not very noticeable because they're kind of tucked back in there. Yeah, this week has been nice because I got home at about 2 o'clock this afternoon and it was glorious. Alright, so he's properly base coated, and now we can move on with what I was going to do. I'm going to put him on the shelf, so he's ready. What's up, Malinus? Yeah, I wanted to get him base coated before I moved on. Now we're going into the World Eaters. The gang is here. Alright, we're gonna do some trim work. Alright, where is my balance? Yeah, I wanted to get that dude base coated because I've been thinking about it for months. And I just haven't actually done it. But this will be my second World Eater Raptor. I would have gotten more, but time has not been on my side. Black on my hand. Way too wet. Way too wet. And you guys can't see it, but my desk is a mess right now. My graphics captain came out so sick when I painted it in 8th. Too bad I used construction gravel as the base, so he weighs 1,000,000 pounds. I kind of like using, like rocks and glass as the base. I did that with my veteran Inverness Sergeant, and I like the extra weight. And the rest of the Inverness squad has those too. And I may use those for a lot of bases moving forward. He is red. It'll taper down once I go with the wash. I do think I went a little heavy on the lightest red, but it'll blend a lot once I go over it with the Agrax. These were the big ones we used to fill up slab. Here are pipes, big residential buildings, full on rocks. Yeah, I wouldn't go quite that big. I do like the height, though. I used a couple big pieces of gravel on my my Brutalis Dreadnought, but it wasn't super necessary. Also, as soon as I get those Plague Marines based, I have the Contemptor Dread finally ready to base. Or, prime. So I'm gonna do all those at the same time. Kinda looking forward to that. Because he is sitting lonely and unprimed. I got all of his weapons up on blocks. And I got some blue tack so I could stick them on. I'm probably going to leave them on there until I finish painting them. But we'll see how long that takes. Yeah, I think I saw it. Yeah. That's a sick scheme, too, for the Templar. Those rocks actually look really good. Do I see some cork on there, too? Totally didn't just waste the last 30, 45 minutes shooting and editing Dumb Short after I got home. I was gonna do that too. And then I didn't have time. I did go to the gym after I got home. That felt good because I haven't been there in like a week. Different court coasters my mom was going to throw away. Well, you can't get rid of that stuff. That's prime basing material. Good on you. Stick it to your mom. Oh, speaking of the gym, I was going to bring this up to the community. Um, because I haven't dedicated a whole lot of thought to it. But what would everyone think if I were to start a fitness channel on Discord? And if it was something that would keep everyone accountable with each other as far as fitness goes, like tracking progress, encouraging each other, just that kind of vibe. If it's not something everyone would be interested in, then we don't have to worry about it. But it was just an idea that I had today. Warhammer Gym Time? Yes. Do it in the LARP channels. Do it. Just if it's something anyone would want to participate in. You do it. Maybe that's something we can bring to reality. Because I know that's something I need is some accountability right now because I have not been motivated whatsoever. Currently sharing the LARP one. That may be something I'll set up in the next day or two. I just don't want there to be any pressure. I would just prefer it for my own accountability. Full on gains for the gain god. And if I had a little more time or disposable income, I'd consider doing martial arts again too. But I don't have either of those things. So the gym is what I stick with. All right, there's the trim for one leg. Brush is retaining an unusual amount of water. I know I already asked Rush to, but what's everybody else working on tonight? Anything of interest? Anything of intrinsic value? Ballista Stride. Video editing, supper, and JCW. I should be editing. still have a video that I've been sitting on for a month. And it's kind of not relevant anymore because a certain trailer dropped like the week after we recorded it. I also still don't think it would perform that well anyway. That trailer kind of took the wind out of those sails. Yeah, pretty swiftly. I thought it was fake the first time, like when I saw it announced. And then I saw that GW themselves announced it, and I was like, oh, okay, well. That one may be a Patreon exclusive. Plus, we didn't stay on topic. Nope, not even a little bit. Yep, that one may remain in the archives. Sorry, I'd be talking more, but Chaos Trim is kind of occupying my focus. I need to grab my other one to make sure I'm painting the right parts. And if anybody didn't see it, this is the one I finished. He's pretty sweet. Allegedly, this is how this one is supposed to turn out. We'll see after I slap the wash on him. Just gotta double check some coloration in here. Alright, now for the helmet. That's where I have to be a little bit more precise. Sorry, I picked a bad time to do the trim. I'm rolling concentration checks every 6 seconds. In there. To hold my breath when I go in to do that. It's still not perfect, but it's passable. We're making it work. Right. This is a lot more intense than I remember the last one being. All right. That's one pauldron. So, playing Helldivers. You're good. Y'all are gonna mess around and make me re-download it. Not that I would ever have time to play. You have any interest in Old World? Not really. Um, Fantasy just isn't something that grabs me. Warhammer Fantasy. I love fantasy in general, but Warhammer Fantasy just isn't really. I don't find it interesting. I've tried, but I don't know. I just don't vibe with the lore as much as 30K and 40K. The models are still awesome. I can't get into the lore as much. I don't know why. I just have a really hard time. And it could be with the fact that I don't see as much homebrew stuff in fantasy as I do in 40K. Because that's kind of where my interest developed, was seeing this universe and the ability to make something within the universe and then going from there. Old World and AOS are just kind of meh. Yeah, that's that's kind of where I stand. I find 40K and 30K vastly more interesting. I do like that you can use AOS models for kit bashing and stuff. But fair. I think the lore is built for and by history nerds. Yeah, 40K scale allows for homebrew. Fantasy is more realizing stuff in the setting. Yeah, I yeah, that's exactly right. Like you were much more contained in fantasy and you can't really build anything. Because like shoot, I'm working on an entire campaign uh in 40K that has to do with one, two, three, or 5 of my homebrews. I do love the setting and the game looks sick. Probably going to switch over once I get my backlog painted. The community and playstyles seem more my speed. That's fair. I've seen that. I'm a history nerd, but I'd much rather learn about real history rather than fake stuff. Also, I just like the scale of 40k, plus I like guns. Also valid. Very, very valid. I don't know. I love fantasy. Like, I love Lord of the Rings and Elder Scrolls and D&D and all that. I don't know. Warhammer Fantasy just doesn't scratch the itch. Like, I'll do deep dives into Tolkien lore or Elder Scrolls lore at any given moment. But I tried it with fantasy and it just didn't grab me. Even with studying history, I really only enjoy stuff from line warfare to present day. Nothing about sword, pike, and shield grabs me. See, I like that stuff. I just like military history, whether it be ancient military, modern military. I'm okay with all that. Like, I'm fascinated by medieval warfare. I do enjoy Romans, but like any medieval history, I don't really bother with. Seeing a lot of that's kind of my bread and butter because I'm a world builder and a DM. So I get into all that. But the nice thing about all that is you can combine pretty much any point in military history in world building. I more say the historical examples, since a lot of Warhammer, and by extension 40k, is built off obscure historical factoids. Also true. And that's probably one of the reasons that I said earlier that I've really been vibing with the Dark Angels. Because they are Knights of the Round Table in space. If I had a soundboard, I'd play the song. Play the Total War Warhammer games, and although I enjoy them, I just don't enjoy it as much as 40k, the factions and lore just isn't enticing. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I've played Total War 2. I think it was 2. And it was okay. But I just couldn't get into the world. This is coming from the guy who grew up on Halo, Star Wars, World War II history. I was a mixture. I grew up on Star Wars, but I also grew up on Lord of the Rings. So I kind of have a soft spot for both. And Warhammer kind of fits into that niche where both are a thing. But way darker. And I like dark. So I vibe with that. Okay. Now we just have to do the World Eater symbol. And I think that's all the... Oh, no. I missed that entire gauntlet. My bad. And I have to do the Chainsword. I wasn't introduced to Tolkien and fantasy until about 3 years ago when my partner made me watch The Hobbit all the way through and Return of the King. Yes, all the extended editions. Truly a keeper, then. I do enjoy fantasy, don't get me wrong, but at my core, I'm a sci-fi history buff. Yeah, I've been a fantasy nut my entire life. Um, but sci-fi. I didn't get into a ton of sci-fi outside of Star Wars, and I was a die-hard Star Wars nerd up until 2015. We don't have to speak about that. I didn't really play a lot of sci-fi games. Pretty much everything I played was fantasy. And I guess Marvel, if you want to count Marvel Comics as sci-fi, I was pretty deep into that growing up. I loved Star Wars as a kid, read a lot of the expanded universe stuff, and played a lot of the games, but the universe hasn't really excited me since middle school outside of the occasional EAW game. I, well, yeah, I was super into it um, through elementary, high school, middle school. Um, well, early high school. And then late high school was whenever everything started crashing down for the franchise. So I just kind of gave up on it. And I'm still kind of in that mindset where I've just kind of given up on it. I will occasionally go back and play one of the games. Like SWTOR. I'll go back and play that on occasion. Because that holds a very special place in my heart as far as gaming goes. But beyond that, I don't really get into it. And I was into the expanded universe. That was something I was relatively familiar with. As I think about it, my enthusiasm for Star Wars waned exactly when I got into 40k. Also, KOTOR 2 is one of the best games ever. I never really got into the KOTOR series. I've tried to go in and play it recently. By recently, I mean in the last couple of years. But it is very dated. And I don't really have the nostalgia for it, so I just didn't really get into it. Like, I know the lore and the story and stuff because I was into the universe, but couldn't really get into the game. And I just celebrated my second anniversary of being into 40k. So there's no correlation there for me, except that my life has been consumed by plastic crack and a lot of Google Docs. Okay. Now I think we're ready for the World Eater symbol. I think. All right. Now we are ready for the gunmetals, I do believe. For my fantasy armies, I'm doing Sillin. I love Black Knights and Beastmen. See, I'm not familiar with my fantasy lore, so a lot of these characters you'll have to explain to me. I know Skaven, I know the Horned Rat, and I know Sigmar, and I know Nagash. And that's about it. That is the extent of my knowledge. Heading to bed early. Just been having to wake up at 4, current work rotation. So that means I gotta be up early too. Oh, I feel that. We'll see you later. Thanks for joining. Now we're ready for the gunmetals. Shouldn't be as intense. He says, hopefully. Tempted to throw some OSL on this plasma, but I didn't with the last one. It turned out okay. So I may not. Yeah, it's kind of a thing. If it's something you're passionate about, I want to hear about it. But if it's something that I have to invest in myself, I'm probably not going to get that into it if it's something that I'm not initially interested in. There's something about people being passionate about something makes it way more interesting. Because, like, I guarantee if someone came into chat right now, that was a little liquidy. If someone came into chat right now and they were like, I love Belgian waffles, and here are 10 paragraphs why, I would find that interesting and I would engage with it. That's just kind of how I approach topics. Even if it's something I'm not necessarily interested in initially, if someone else is and they want to talk about it, sure, go for it. I don't know if that was the best example, but there are plenty of things people are passionate about. This being mine, for instance. I'll go on about it for hours until I can inevitably see that you have no interest in it whatsoever and you don't want to listen to me talk about it. So that's the moment I usually end up shutting up. Because most people are like, I don't care about you or your hyperfixations. I think it's a hyperfixation. Is it a hyperfixation if it's lasted for longer than 2 years? Maybe we should identify that. Because at what point does it cross the threshold from hyperfixation to just an interest or a passion? I think it's an especially hyperfixation at the point A mega fixation, if you will. I like that. Put that on a mug. This is my mega fixation. I like that a lot. I'm going to use that in my day-to-day life. Mega fixation. People will be like, Warhammer, what's that? Oh, it's nothing. Just my mega fixation. It's a lot more grandiose. Makes it sound a lot cooler. Mega fixation. That. Let's see. We onto the jump pack now? I do believe. We hit these hoses. I'm carried away there, but it's okay. Transition the Beastmen talk into 40k. How would you feel about new Lost in the Damned Codex? I think one of the most necessary additions in the lineup. I agree. I absolutely agree. I think it's something that's been overlooked, and yet something that's been relatively prevalent, like in everything, because it's always there, but it's never addressed in the tabletop. It's always shoehorned into something else. that is something I would definitely be on board with. Shoving so many cultists and beastmen, Trader Guard, into Codex CSM. It's never sat right with me. Yeah, and I was just thinking the other day. I would love to have a Chaos Guard army. Or at the very least, just Trader Guard. Like, I would rather have that than a regular Guard army. That's also because I'm slightly Chaos build. But it's not an option. Unless you run CSM and just load it with cultists. I mean, you can do it in theory and just run it as guard, but the flavor isn't there. You don't get chaos boons. I just feel like it's something that's woefully overlooked. Because you also have to think about it when you're thinking about scale. Most of the time, the Astra Militarum is taking on either Xenos or Traders. Chaos Marines are a very rare occurrence. Almost as much as Loyal Marines. Like, if you're going to convey a planetary rebellion because of chaos corruption, but it goes far beyond cults, like, it's an entire PDF. Why not give that as an option? I would love that. But if you want to do that, you have to kit bash and convert an entire army. And that's a lot of work I know a lot of people aren't willing to put in. I would do it if I had the time and the resources. All right. I do believe we are ready for the wash. And it should, in theory, bring the whole model together. And then I'll go in and... Oh, wait, no, I gotta do the white toothy bits. My bad. Go in and do some base coating here. And then... And then we'll go in for the wash. No, it has to be hard on these turbines when there are teeth growing out of them. And from the looks of the new Raptors, it looks like there are even more teeth. All right. I think that's all. Scratch. I need to get another pot at some point here in the near future. Losing everything. It's not my sanity. I lost that a long time ago. Okay. Throw some thinner into it. I have to mix up some more. We'll see. Might actually be too thin. I'm definitely gonna have to mix up some more. I don't remember how much I used on the last one. It's clearly more than this, though. Do that real quick. That's a more adequate amount. That seems more like what I did in the first place. Just lay it on heavy and then spread it around. Might have actually mixed up too much. Try to be relatively conservative with it. Because I don't really want to buy a new pot. But I may have to. There we go. Fully washed. Ready to go. Now we do all the glowy bits. And the bloody bits. Get receptive dry. I gotta base coat the base, and that might be where we call it for tonight. The fine brush. Should wait for it to dry first. I don't want any agrax bleeding into the glowies. Give a quick comparison. It's not quite the same. It's a little brighter. Probably just because I didn't lay it on a stick. But I think I went a little too bright with the red. But it did bring it down the way I wanted. So that's good. They look similar enough. Guess I can go ahead and base coat the base. Two birds with one stone, as it were. Oh, the ballistus is sick. Nice, Melodus. Very nice. By the way, if anyone's curious what we're talking about, Melodus just shared his Ballistus Dreadnought in our Discord. And if you're not over there, you should be, because there's fun things that happen over there. Models, lore, homebrew lore, random other conversations. Sometimes Warhammer news if I can get to it. Don't love the yellow, but it was, well, iodine yellow, less orange. Let's probably try that next time. I have yet to find a yellow recipe I'm happy with. Imperial Fist works great if it's over a bright, like Wraithbone or something. People always told me to put it over pink, and I don't like the way yellow looks over pink. It's way too orange. And I don't feel like it fits. Maybe for Imperial Fists it works, but for my Angels of Sorrow, it's not really a good fit. I have seen people have a lot of luck with Averland Sunset. And that's one I'd like to try at some point. Cat is telling me he's ready for bed. What do you want? Hungry? I ate earlier. He's a chunky boy. Let's see. Is it dry yet? Not quite. Maybe it's dry enough where I can get the base for the white. I like the orange hue it gives when applied over pink shadows, but this the Zealot yellow from Army Painter, I can't work. It's very orange. I am not super familiar with the Army Painter line, so I can't speak on it. Eyes. What? See, feed you with me. He just plopped. That'll have to do. Can't really reach that eye very well. Hoping to get a bunch of my extra marine body speed painted. As if to play some Horus Heresy at some point. What? He's being very loud and annoying. And he's a glutton for food and attention. I have stuff to do. Trying to get it done, and you are being very disruptive. Base this plasma coil. Sounds like your dog. He thinks he's a dog. Yeah. Talking about you. Most days I would rather have a dog. But we're stuck with you. I think you own the place. I think that's a proper base coat. Just wait for that to dry. Do the blood yet? I think we can. blood, my favorite flavor. I think it was supposed to be going up. We gotta do some on the other side. It doesn't get used very often, but Blood for the Blood God is definitely one of my favorite paints that I own. Alright, we're ready for the glow. Best part about this is I don't even have to thin it, because it's so runny. Comes out of the bottle like that. I don't really know why. You have to put it on a little thicker on the plasma coil. I'll go in with some extra white for some OSL. Go in and do a couple pins. It's more of a glaze. Alright, then once that dries on the plasma, I can go in for the second layer. We will be good to go. Finish the base throughout the week like I did with this guy. The spores on him. Just doing some side by side here. Doesn't look that far off. One definitely seems glossier. Yeah, this one is. I think there was some texturing in the paint, I'm realizing. I'm not entirely sure why that is. I don't know if it was the primer, but I primed them at the same time. I really don't know. I might have just gone too heavy. I'll try to refrain for the next one. Because, yeah, I'm way happier with the first one than I am with this one. I'll have to fix my methods for the next one. Gotta get going. Alright, we'll see you later. I'm probably going to wrap up here in a minute. Once I get this glow on the coil. See if I can get a fine pen in here. Supposed to happen. Let's try that again. It's probably one of the better glows. Pretty happy with that. Then we'll go in and give it a little glaze. And then we will call it for the evening. No, not my best work. But it's certainly passable. Don't mind it. It came out a little more textured than I would have preferred, but it's fine. And I will finish the base at some point this week. So, without further ado, thanks everybody who made it this far, and I will see everyone next week.